Evening, y'all. Christy back on. It is Saturday still, November 19th. Like I said earlier, I wanted to hop back on and talk a little bit about my anxiety. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and knock out my quote for my check-in for today. I'm all nice, I'm all warm, had my nice hot shower, went and had a bowl of tomato basil soup for a late lunch. So I feel much better. Not sure what tomorrow is going to bring, how the weather will be. I haven't watched it because it really doesn't matter. I still have to go outside and do my 45 minutes, so really doesn't matter as long as there's not lightning and a hurricane or anything like that. But I want to go ahead, like I said, and go and give my quote for today. I have all of my tasks completed so far. I just have to drink one more 16-ounce glass of water and do my indoor 45-minute session, which I plan on doing yoga, so I'll do that after I do this post really quickly. But my quote for today is by Plato, and it is, "The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world," which I really like. Empathy goes a long way, and it's often not applied, which I've been guilty of it before in the past. Because I used to be guilty of not putting myself in someone else's shoes. Like, especially, I'm sure I was non-empathetic when I was, when I owned the daycare. I guess you get so hardened sometimes when you are the boss and you work. You have employees that work for you, and a lot of the times you lose your empathy because you have heard everything, every, I guess, excuse under the sun, or every reasoning why someone can't come to work, that sometimes you lose your empathy and you become hardened, and you don't put yourself in your employee's shoes or in anyone's shoes sometimes, because you compare people to yourself, and I know I've been guilty of that, being a boss and maybe a wife or a mother or a friend, and you tend to put everybody in your shoes as opposed to putting yourself in their shoes. You figure, okay, well, I'm able to do it, or I'm able to push through something and get it together and do it. Why can't someone else? And that isn't the proper way to handle things. You are supposed to be empathetic regardless. And I know for a fact that I have been guilty of it before, so I definitely can relate to that, and letting my own judgment or my own perceptions of how people should handle things influence my empathy. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's something I've been working on, and I now am able to say that I am empathetic, and for a long time I wasn't. And it's years and years of just my own personal experiences, and I'm proud that I'm able to admit that, and I own that. That's one of my faults, and I don't plan to ever be that. I'm not going to say I'm not going to slip up, but then, I'm able to have conversations with myself and you know, ask myself the questions, you know, maybe what are they going through? Or maybe they're just not having a bad day. Who am I to judge? You know, let me put myself in their shoes for a minute. So I really thought that was pretty interesting, because that is something that I have been working on, because I know that that was something that was prohibiting me or enabling me of becoming my best, the version of my best self, the best version of myself, and achieving personal excellence. And, you know, like I said, I'm my own worst critic. So, of course, you know, I'm going to put my unrealistic expectations and my overachieving requirements to other people when it has nothing to do with them. But, you know, that was just a little bit, I mean, that was just something that made me think today when I read that quote. So, you know, that's just something that we all should examine, because I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of it, because I know I was and have been for a long time. But like I said, I finished reading my book, The Richest Man in Babylon. So I just started reading this, The 3 Feet from Gold. And, you know, like, it's based from the Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. And it examines 2 subjects and how they applied this principle that was mentioned in Think and Grow Rich. So I just started it, and it's really good. I will probably read some tonight, you know, after I finish my yoga. And, you know, I really enjoy reading these books. And for a long time, I didn't like to read, you know. Well, I got away from it. I didn't make the time for it. I had, like I was saying, excuses, or as I've read in the books from Napoleon Hill, my alibis, you know, anything, you know, any excuse under the sun, or any alibi that, you know, any that you use in order to justify why you didn't do something. So, you know, he doesn't call them excuses, he calls them alibis, because everybody's using an alibi why they were prevented from doing something, or why they can't start something, or why it's not good for them to do it, or they don't have the time. It's just alibis. But anyways, like I was saying, I wanted to talk just a little bit. I don't want to get too deep into it, because I don't want my video to get too long. Maybe I'll talk a little bit, some today and then some tomorrow afternoon, who knows. But, you know, anxiety is a thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And in the past, it wasn't talked about. You didn't talk about a lot of these mental illnesses. And, you know, especially growing up, you know, it was, you know, in your head. It was always in your head. You know, you just kind of brush it off as to that, you know, it's all in your head. You know, get some rest. It'll be better tomorrow. And, you know, I guess I never really thought about it as something that I struggled with, but I didn't really notice it, my anxiety, until maybe when I started teaching. And I think a lot of my anxiety personally comes from myself and these unrealistic expectations, and trying to do too many things at once, or, you know, just being a perfectionist and always trying to be the best at everything caused a lot of my anxiety. And, you know, I didn't really think of it as anxiety. I just thought of it as, oh, well, you know, my heart's racing because I'm excited, or I'm nervous. And, you know, I didn't really admit that I had a problem or that I had issues with anxiety until, you know, someone else, my husband, brought it to me. And you know, I would start bringing it home. You know, I noticed it at work, you know, and I just kind of brushed it off. But when my husband had sat me down, I think this was probably my second year of teaching. It was right after Ike had hit, and I got an influx of students from Louisiana, and it was just chaos. And I always felt like I couldn't breathe before I would go to work, and I was irritable, and I didn't have any patience, and everything was just, it always just felt like it was consuming my world. And I remember, you know, my husband saying, you know, this has to stop. What's going on with you? He's like, what really made me stop is when he said to me, I don't even know who's coming home. He's like, I literally walk on eggshells because I don't know the person that's going to enter the door. And that kind of just stopped me in my tracks. And I had to think about that. It was like, because I didn't know, I didn't pay attention to something like that. You know, I never knew that it was affecting, you know, my home life. You know, I just thought it was something that I was dealing with, and I wasn't pushing this onto, you know, my household, you know, my family, my immediate family. You know, I never thought that it affected them. And that was a very, it was an awakening moment for me, because, I mean, you never expect someone that you love to say, you know, has to stop. I don't know who you are, you know, who am I going to get today? Am I going to get, you know, the angry Christy that walks in the door that loses her cool if I say hello wrong, or if there's, you know, something out of place? Or am I going to get the I don't give a dang Christy that comes in, could care less about anything? Or the Christy, the emotional Christy that just wants to sit in a room and cry? Or the Christy, you know, that doesn't want to talk to him, or that would just say, oh, how was your day? It was fine. And that was the gist of it. There was no conversations. So that was a real eye-opener, because I'd never thought about it like that before. And he was pretty blunt about it, you know. He said, I'm tired of walking on eggshells. You've got to go and get some help. And, you know, of course, there's nothing wrong with me. You know, I'm fine. It's all in my head. You know, it'll go away tomorrow. I just had a rough day. And then, you know, it wasn't. You know, I truly was dealing with anxiety issues, and, you know, finally went to a therapist and got diagnosed and began my journey to find the medication that worked, because, you know, I've taken my fair share of them, and some of them were not good for me, and, you know, made things worse. So, you know, I'm glad that I did get help, because it could have probably affected my marriage, because it already was. And that was 12 years ago, I'm sure. You know, it's been a long time. So, you know, it was just something that you just didn't talk about, and you still don't really talk about it. Or there's still people that says, oh yes, you've got mental issues and stuff, and joke around about it. But with people who have mental illnesses, it's not funny. It's not a joke, because you can't ever explain to anyone how you feel unless they struggle with it themselves. You know, people will listen and be sympathetic, but they don't really understand what you're going through unless they've gone through it themselves, or they go through it every single day. You know, because it's not as easy. It's not something as simple as saying, okay, get yourself together, regroup, and do it again the next day, because sometimes it's not that easy. It takes everything you have just to get it together. And sometimes you don't have the answers. And, you know, it's a lot. And it only makes things harder when you're not feeling great about yourself, or you're not 100% happy. And it makes everything else that much more difficult. So, you know, I don't want to get too deep. It's a Friday, but, you know, it's okay. It really is okay to admit that you have anxiety, or that you have depression, or because they kind of go hand in hand sometimes. Anxiety causes depression, and depression causes anxiety. I mean, they kind of move symbiotically. So, you know, it needs to be talked about more, because it's always been around. It just was never talked about, and now it is. But even to this day, there's still people that are afraid or ashamed or embarrassed to say they need help, you know? And it's okay. You know, it took me a long time to say I needed help. And it was more of myself feeling like a failure, or feeling weak, like I couldn't handle my own emotions. But, you know, that's just barely touching the surface of it. You know, there's so many layers of it. And, you know, I'll talk some more about it tomorrow. You know, I don't want to get too deep and about it right now, you know. But that's my little insight into it right now. That's a little bit of me that, you know, I'm allowing to be vulnerable and exposed, and, you know, for people to see that even people that pretend or put on a good show like they've got it together don't really have it together all the time. And I am 100% that person that doesn't always have it together, even when I seem like I have it together. You know, it took me everything I had to look like I had it together. And some days are better than others. Even now, you know, like this today, earlier, I mean, that freezing cold walk outside was hard. It was not fun. You know, it didn't make me feel good. But, you know, that's just the way it goes. But I'm okay with it. You know, I'm okay with that now. You know, I'm able to process it and internalize it, and it was temporary. It was only temporary. And it passed. It was over. I made it through it. So, you know, that was a small win for me, because I was dreading it the whole time. But, all right, enough deepness for me. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. And I will see y'all tomorrow, Saturday. Yeah, okay. So remember, you are important. You matter. Your happiness matters. I believe in you. You should believe in yourselves. Do things that make you happy. You know? Love yourself. Laugh at yourself. I do all the time. And just know it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. And I will see y'all tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I've said that multiple times, because I done distracted my own self with all my deep talk. And maybe I need to do something to laugh at myself here shortly. I'm pretty sure I'll watch this and laugh at myself as I'm uploading it to YouTube. But that's all I got. And delete regrets, hit reset, and unleash your new mindset. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.